Star Wars 7x7, episode 2275. The question of why no one seems to remember the Jedi in Star Wars is taking on new importance with The Mandalorian Season 2, and it's actually leading me, as I consider this, to a rather shocking and surprising and exciting possibility. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So, with Season 2 of The Mandalorian about to debut just a month from now on Disney+, much of the plot is going to center on the notion of returning Baby Yoda to his people, as it were. And we don't necessarily know whether that means Yoda's species or whether that means the Jedi. The conversation between the Mandalorian and the armorer seems to indicate that it's more about getting him to the Jedi or finding people like Jedi. And so that is what's going to be, part of that whole journey. But it's probably going to take a while because it's a little hard to find Jedi right now. And I wanted to discuss that particular aspect because there's something that, has been talked about a lot, and there's something that hasn't been talked about very much. I'll go with the not very much thing, which is the knowledge that Luke Skywalker was a Jedi and was training to be a Jedi. So in thinking back to the Aftermath novel by Chuck Wendig, the first of the trilogy, there's an opening in that book where Admiral Akbar is talking about, the fight's still going on, and although we had these victories, that's great, there's still a lot more work to do. He refers to Commander Skywalker and says Commander Skywalker reports that the Emperor and Darth Vader are dead. So that struck me as being really interesting. Nobody's talking about him being a Jedi, and I don't know what kind of open secret or closed secret it is that he has been exploring Jedi powers, but it doesn't seem like that's something that's been part of the propaganda that the Rebel Alliance has been producing for these past 4 years before the end of Return of the Jedi. Now, yes, there have been Rebel witnesses to his daring do, and you could also consider Poe Dameron's mother, Shara Bay, having been witness to Luke Skywalker and, some of his Jedi exploits in the Shattered Empire comic series. And, Han obviously knows about it. Leia obviously knows about it. I'm sure the leadership knows about it, but it doesn't seem like it's something that's widely known in the galaxy. So by the time we get to The Mandalorian, 9 years after the Battle of Yavin, so 9 years after A New Hope, it's still the case that Jedi aren't really known or remembered in the galaxy. Yeah, maybe there are, crazy little scholars like Beaumont Kin who are tracking some of this stuff. But yeah, for the most part, it's just not there. And this is where we get into the whole, it being a known thing for all intents and purposes. When we meet the characters in A New Hope, it's already kind of established that nobody really knows anything about the Jedi. Han Solo thinks it's just a hokey religion and doesn't think anything more of it than that. We know that Palpatine has done his best to, in the beginning, portray the Jedi as the evil in the galaxy that he defeated, and then ultimately to try to wipe out any record of their existence. It seems outlandish, perhaps, but think of your own life, and think of whether you can remember anything that happened in the year that was 19 years ago. Yes, there are certain major world events that we can remember, like the attacks on the World Trade Center in September of 2001. Yeah, that was 19 years ago. Shocking. Absolutely horrifying. I remember the morning where I was, how I found out about it, all that stuff. Let's keep it neutral, though, and keep it within our own personal experiences for the purposes of our podcast here. What can you remember about your life in 2001? I can remember that I was newly married, and we'd celebrated our first anniversary that year. We didn't have kids yet, but we were talking about it. I can remember where I lived. I can remember what work I was doing. But as far as what I did with my time, I can't really bring any of it back. And I've had conversations with my wife about stuff like this. It's really difficult to remember unless you're journaling, unless you are going back over your journals to refresh yourself with these things. And it's that way for just about everybody I know. So I think ultimately what I'm saying is that the older I get, the more likely it seems that everybody's forgotten the Jedi in Star Wars, and the notion of 20 years on people, being completely unaware of them is not as shocking as it used to be. And I guess you consider too the possibility that, if the Jedi weren't really going to every single planet, they were only, galactic peacekeepers and diplomats, then they were only going to trouble spots, and so it wasn't like they were going to everywhere in the galaxy. You could imagine that, most places were not causing trouble or having any kind of trouble, and so, why would the Jedi go there? They would just be, a random story, basically, or recruitment things too. So, yeah, it's hard to say, but be that as it may, all of this ultimately leads to something that's rather shocking and surprising, I think, and I'll share that with you in just a second. I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Audible and remind you, you can still get a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial if you go to sw7x7.com/audible. Thousands of non-Star Wars titles, hundreds of Star Wars titles. Even if you count the Legend stuff in it, I guess maybe, is it possible it could get to 1,000? That would be incredible, but whatever Star Wars story you like to hear, or whatever non-Star Wars story to, cleanse the palate, if you will, it's all available to you via sw7x7.com/audible. Go there for your free audiobook and free 30-day trial, and doing that will help support the show here as well. So thank you for checking it out. So here's the thing. If the Jedi have not been reestablished by the time of The Mandalorian, so 9 ABY, 10 ABY going into Season 2, then there's only really one Jedi kicking around, and that's Luke Skywalker. And he hasn't started his temple yet, so it's only him and maybe other random Force-sensitive people scattered about the galaxy, but the possibility of the Mandalorian connecting with somebody who is Force-sensitive, connecting with someone who is actually going out and about the galaxy, trying to learn more about the Force, learn more about the Jedi, do the research, try to get things restarted again. This opens up the door for the possibility of Luke Skywalker and the Mandalorian. I know this seems a little bit outrageous as a possibility. I don't think there are any rumors about this anywhere, so you just have to understand that I'm only logicking myself into this, if logicking is a word. But considering that they very briefly, ever so briefly, used the digital de-aging technology in The Rise of Skywalker to give us a young Luke Skywalker, we know that it's possible for something like that to happen. I think vocally, though, that would be the biggest challenge, because we're talking about a Luke Skywalker who is only 6 years removed from Return of the Jedi in The Mandalorian, if he were to show up, versus being, another 24 years on in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. So, yeah, that's 30 years, so Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill would have to de-age his voice as well, but he's a talented voice actor, so it's entirely possible, to say nothing of technology being involved in all this stuff. But yeah, again, this is just speculation and logic based on what's been presented to us so far. I think heads would explode. Can you imagine the end of Season 2, the shocking cliffhanger equivalent to Moff Gideon cutting out of the TIE fighter with the Darksaber, if the equivalent were the Mandalorian and the child walking into that icy cave and suddenly meditating in the middle of that thing as a young Luke Skywalker? The thought of something like that just makes me so excited. So I don't want to get carried away, because, expectation can sometimes be the thief of joy, as it were. So that's where we're going to leave things for the show today. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.